ambassador to the enemy! Clip, clop, clop, sounded Betsy's hoofs across the field. There was a treacherous slime of mud on the surface, but underneath it the clods were still frozen as hard as iron. Then the bare branches of the wood were all around them, and Caddie had to duck and dodge to save her eyes and her hair. Here the February thaw had not succeeded in clearing the snow. It stretched grey and dreary underfoot, treacherously rotted about the roots of big trees. Caddie slowed her mare's pace and guided her carefully now. She did not want to lose precious time in floundering about in melting snow. Straight for the river she went. If the ice still held, she could get across here, and the going would be easier on the other side. Not a squirrel or a bird in the woods. So silent, so silent. Only the clip, clop, clip of Betsy's hoofs. Then the river stretched out before her, a long expanse of blue, gray ice under the gray sky. Carefully now, Betsy. Take it slowly, old girl. Caddie held a tight rein with one hand and stroked the horse's neck with the other. That's good, girl. Take it slowly. Down the bank they went, delicately onto the ice. Betsy flung up her head, her nostrils distended. Her hind legs slipped on the ice, and for a quivering instant she struggled for her balance. Then she found her pace. Slowly, cautiously, she went daintily forward, picking her way, but with a snort of disapproval for the wisdom of her young mistress. The key creaked, but it was still sound enough to bear their weight. They reached the other side and scrambled up the bank. Well, so much done. Now for more woods. There was no proper sunset that day, only a sudden, lemon-colored rift in the clouds in the west. Then the clouds closed together again and darkness began to fall. The ride was long, but at last it was over. Blue and with cold, Caddie rode into the clearing where the Indians had built their winter huts. Dogs ran at her barking, and there was a warm smell of smoke in the air. A fire was blazing in the center of the clearing. Dark figures moved about it. Were they in war paint and feathers? Caddie's heart pounded as she drew Betsy to a stop. But no, surely, they were only old women, bending over cooking pots. The running figures were children coming now to swarm about her. There was no war paint, no feathers. Surely she and her father had been right. Tears began to trickle down Caddie's cold cheeks. Now the men were coming out of the bark huts. More and more Indians kept coming toward her, but they were not angry, only full of wonder. "John," said Caddie, in a strange little voice, which she could hardly recognize as hers. "Where is John? I must see John." "John," repeated the Indians, recognizing the name of the white men had given to one of their braves. They spoke with strange sounds among themselves. Then one of them went running. Caddie sat on her horse, half dazed, cold in the bone, but happy inside. The Indians were not on the war-path. They were not preparing an attack. Whatever the tribes farther west might be plotting, these Indians, whom father and she trusted, were going about their business peacefully. If they could only get away now in time before the white men came to kill them, or perhaps she could get home again in time to stop the white men from making the attack. Would those men, whom she had heard talking by the cellar door, believe a little girl when she told them that John's tribe was at peace? She did not know. Savages were savages, but what could one expect of civilized men who plotted massacre? Indian John's tall figure came toward her from one of the huts. His steps were unhurried and his eyes were unsurprised. "You lost, Missy Red Hair?" he inquired. "No, no," said Caddie, "I am not lost, John. But I must tell you, some white men are coming to kill you. You and your people must go away. You must not fight. You must go away, I have told you." "You cold?" said John. He lifted Caddie off her horse and led her to the fire. "No understand," said John, shaking his head in perplexity. "Speak too quick, Missy Red Hair." Caddie tried again, speaking more slowly. "I came to tell you, some bad men wish to kill you and your people. You must go away, John. My father is your friend. I came to warn you." "Redbeard he send?" asked John. "No, my father did not send me," said Caddie. No one knows that I have come. You must take your people and go away." "You hungry?" John asked her, and mutely Caddie nodded her head. Tears were running again, and her teeth were chattering. John spoke to the squaws standing motionless about the fire. Instantly they moved to do his bidding. One spread a buffalo skin for her to sit on. Another ladled something hot and tasty into a cup without a handle, a cup which had doubtless come from some settler's cabin. Caddie grasped the hot cup between her cold hands and drank. A little trickle of warmth seemed to go all over her body. She stretched her hands to the fire. Her tears stopped running, and her teeth stopped chattering. She let the Indian children who had come up behind her touch her hair, without flicking it away from them. John's dog came and lay down near her, wagging his tail. "You tell John again," said John, squatting beside her in the firelight. Caddie began again slowly. She told how the whites had heard that the Indians were coming to kill. She told how her father and she had not believed. She told how some of the people had become restless and planned to attack the Indians first. She begged John to go away and his tribes while there was still time. When she had finished, John grunted and continued to sit on, looking into the fire. She did not know whether he had understood her. All about the fire were row and row of dark faces, looking at her steadily with wonder but no understanding. John knew more English than any of them, and yet it seemed he did not understand. Patiently she began again to explain, but now John shook his head. He rose and stood tall in the firelight above the little white girl. "You come," he said. Caddie rose uncertainly. She saw it was quite dark now outside the ring of firelight, and a fine, sharp sleet was hissing down into the fire. John spoke in his own tongue to the Indians. What he was telling them she could not say, but their faces did not change. One ran to lead beside Betsy to the fire, and another brought a spotted Indian pony that had been tethered at the edge of the clearing. "Now we go," said the Indian. "I will go back alone," said Caddie, speaking distinctly. "You and your people must make ready to travel westward." "Red Hair has spoken," said John. "John's people go tomorrow." He lifted her onto her horse's back, and himself sprang onto the pony. Caddie was frightened again, frightened of the dark and cold, and uncertain of what John meant to do. "I can go alone, John," she said. "John, go too," said the Indian. He turned his pony into the faint woods trail by which she had come. That's page 138.